Welcome to the Norma series of interviews for International Women's Day 2022. Today we talk with Holly, a designer, and Sana, a developer, both of whom work in the product practice. So much to learn from these talented women.
I'm so excited. It's so great to have you here. So I'm gonna ask you, Holly, very briefly, can you please tell me about your past, where you were born, where you grew up, and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So I hail from the tiny island of Hong Kong. I was actually born there and I moved to Australia when I was 2.5. So I moved to a very, very white Australian part of Sydney. And by very, very white Australian, I mean I was probably one of 8 Asian kids in my entire primary school. I got bullied a bit for being Chinese, looking different. And then I kind of had a similar experience in high school. There was only like 13 Asian kids in my year. So my cultural identity is it's very white, I would say. um, yeah. So most of my family is in Hong Kong. Like my dad and my mum's side of the family, I have one uncle who emigrated here as well. We basically kind of followed him, but yeah, I don't know. I don't see my family very often, especially harder during COVID. I think that's it. I have a sister and I'm very close to her. She's 5 years older than me. She just got married, so she just moved out of my house. Miss her a little bit. Yeah, that's me.
That was definitely a lot very interesting, Holly. Where I was born in Mumbai, India, to incredible parents. I'm the only daughter, immensely loved, but I must say I'm not spoiled at all. My mom, who's also a teacher, has been very strict with me, and not pampered, a little bit spoiled by my dad, but not my mom. Then come from pretty middle class family in India, nuclear family. I lived with my grandparents for a bit, but they passed away when I was very young. So it's mostly just me, my mom, and dad. We're pretty close to each other. I tend to look up to them as friends. We've never shared that role Indian mother-daughter relation or Indian father-daughter relation. We've been very close to each other. We share a lot of stuff. And the identity that I relate with goes unsaid. I think 70% of my life I've lived in India. I've done my schooling there. I've done my college in India. My bachelor degree was again in India. I also gained a bit of work experience before I finally decided to move to Australia for my further studies and also to explore a bit. So I moved here in 2018. I haven't met my parents since. It was the first 2 years were a bit crucial because I was still trying to, absorb the new culture, get my foot into this country, and it was hard at first. And then COVID happened, the lockdown, border closures, and then we just couldn't meet each other. Now, hopefully, the borders have opened, so that's good news. I hopefully get to see my parents soon.
Holly, what kind of person were you as a child and as a teenager?
Was I? Oh, I was a huge tomboy. So my dad often joked that, well, he wanted a son, but he got me instead. I used to watch my dad play a lot of computer games, Myst being the big one that I remember. I wanted to be like my dad, so I became really obsessed with computers and games at a young age, and he like bought me a Game Boy and made me into a really huge gamer. And I used to play games with him. Like I used to play PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, until one day I crushed him in a car racing game, like just mercilessly crushed him, and he never played games with me ever again, which in hindsight is a bit sad, but also a little bit funny. So I I guess when I was a child, I was kind of the creative type. Like, I was definitely an emo kid in high school. Just, I don't know, exploring my gothic, sensitive nature. I used to play guitar a lot in high school, but I kind of dropped that when I moved into uni. But I think the biggest thing was in high school, I didn't really enjoy anything except for visual arts. And my art teacher was really encouraging. She was like, I think you're really good at this. I think you should pursue something in graphic design. And that's kind of what I did.
Thank you so much, Holly.
It's okay.
Same question to you, Sana.
I'm sorry, but I'm just going to comment on Holly's statement that says she was a tomboy. Holly, I cannot imagine you being a tomboy. I really need to see a picture of you.
Oh, I
It's
will
so
show
fun.
you.
Well, I was the complete opposite. I was this Bollywood drama girl, loving to dance on Bollywood songs. But I was actually very, very shy. I was very shy, a kid with very few words when it came to my relatives and elderly people around me. Some people, they say, like my mom used to say, she's like, sometimes I don't even know you're in the room. Like I'm so quiet sometimes. But I'm exactly the opposite when it comes to friends. I am so loud. My mom kept yelling at me when I was a kid. We had this housing society where there are a lot of buildings, and everybody, like there are kids from every building, and they come down in the evening and we like play games and stuff. And I was the most loudest, and my mom could hear me like from miles apart. She's like, "Why are you yelling? Who do you want to? What do you want everybody in the building to know that Sana is down and playing?" I was so loud when it came to friends. I loved playing. I was very sportive. Um, a very good athlete in school. Like pretty much one of the best in my house. I'm not kind of boasting here, but yeah, I just go back and I was like, oh man, I was so good at sports back then. So yeah, I was very sportive, a lot into extracurricular activities, and I'd say that I should give credit to my mom because she very subtly pushed me, to be in the front, um, be in front of the audience, participate in like elocution competitions, debates, and stuff. Back then, I just had fun. I just participated, like, okay, there's this competition, and just did it for fun. But then now I look back and I see that, somewhere it has really helped me gain confidence when it comes to public speaking or speaking in front of a crowd or even in a meeting. I feel that it's somewhere helped me. She very subtly did that. But yeah, as a teen, I I I I just enjoyed playing. I was above average in studies. I did not like studying that much. Always being yelled at, and I had a combination of an Indian mother and a teacher, and that combination can get wild. So yeah, I mean, I've always been yelled at when I was a teen or a kid about not studying, but I'd always get good grades, but it was never up to my mom's expectations. Um, but yeah, apart from that, I was just had a lot of energy. But at the same time, I was also like in the shadow of my parents. Self-dependence was still a thing. I like, especially because of the culture in India, it's very different. You tend to live with your parents for a very long period of time. Especially if you're a girl, you live with them and you leave your parents when you get married. And if you're a boy, you continue to live with your parents. Like if you choose to live with your parents, you continue to live with them even after marriage. So there was never this thing, of moving out and living by myself until I came here to Australia and I saw this different world of, teens living out there, working, living for themselves. And it was very different. But yeah, coming back to the question, as a teen, I was full of energy. Like when I look back, they're like broad smiles and a few giggles as to see how I've grown into this person.
Thank you so much, Sana. Wonderful to learn all this about you. I'll contain myself. Go to the next question. Holly, who were some of your early female influences in terms of people that you looked up to or learned from? These can be real people or fictional people.
Probably my visual arts teacher was a big influence on me. It was kind of like the first time someone in authority was like, I think you're good at this. And I'm like, oh, am I? Thank you. That like affirmation. I think it's all, like my mum and my sister have always kind of been huge influences on my life. Like everyone in my family is stupid, crazy, smart, and I am less so, I feel. That's my perception of myself. Yeah, I think probably my sister. I think just because we kind of went through the same journey, it was harder for her to come to Australia, I think, because she was in like, I think year 4, year 5 when she came to Australia, and she couldn't speak English that well. And then she had to kind of go through the cycles of being that Asian kid in a bunch of, in a crowd of people that don't really look like herself. So I just kind of copied everything she did because, she survived it. And I was like, if I do what she did, then I think I'll be okay as well. Yeah, I never kind of, I don't know if they would be, I don't know. Something I neglected to mention was I was a huge bookworm as a child. So like in primary school and high school, I would read, just read maybe like 3 books a week, which is kind of crazy to think about how much time that might take me nowadays. But I think it was just, I think that's where like I got access to female influences, if that makes sense. Like I didn't watch that much TV when I was growing up. I didn't consume that much media except for what I found on the internet. I just read a lot, and I read a lot of fantasy books. So like, I'm not sure if these are like good female influences, but yeah, I read a lot and I daydreamed a lot. Yeah, I might have a think about it and throw the question to Sano, but I think my main female influence is probably my mum and my sister.
Thank you so much, Holly. Sana, same question to you. Who were some of your early female influences in terms of people that you looked up to or learned from? These can be real people or fictional people.
I don't really have a name to give you here, but I think I'm very much inspired by female athletes. It just gives me, when I look at them, I just see, I just feel so proud. Like sports is so much a male dominated world. And when a woman achieves, or for example, a very recent achievement was Ash Barty winning a Grand Slam. Like when I look at her hold that trophy, it just makes me so proud as a woman. Like I just feel that I have somewhere achieved that. So they've always played. When I was very young, there was also Sania Mirza that I looked up to. So there are a couple of female athletes. But again, the most closest influencer in my life was my mom. I've always looked up to her. She's been a mother, she's been a friend, she's been a wife, she's been a teacher, she's playing so many different roles and playing it so well. And I was like, man, you really need a standing ovation for everything that you have done. So somewhere she just influences me. And I just like everybody around me, I just kind of learn something from every woman that I talk to. Everybody have their own story to share, and I enjoy just seeing the different perspectives. Just listen to them gives me a lot of pleasure for some reason. Like I don't know, but yeah, that's me. I just like listening to people. I like listening to people around me, and then in some way, maybe not the entire person influences me, but there are some aspects of that person that really hit me sometimes and influence me in my decisions or the things that I do in my life.
Holly, Since we ask each other this question often and explore it often as well, what's your purpose?
Well, my purpose has evolved quite a bit over the past 6 years, but I think it's kind of morphing to wanting to have fun in the work that I do. So I might give a bit of context to that. I started professionally as a graphic designer, and then I started to get into like web design more so than just like straight graphic design and branding, and then came across a little startup called Nomos, and I started working there, and Nomos had about 10 devs, and there was just me, one designer, and I started learning how to dev from the designers. So I moved from being a designer to a developer, and I have been developing for probably like 2 to 3 years now. And I think last year I kind of decided like I don't really want to dev anymore. I really miss kind of my roots of where I came from and the ways that you can express yourself through design. So my purpose, I think, is to become a better designer now, but also kind of like using both of the domains in which I'm kind of familiar with to make decisions that I don't think like people. I don't know. I think I just think a little bit differently, and my purpose is to understand how best to use that superpower.
Yeah, my purpose is to get creative with code. I was very clear before I joined Nomos. I knew what I liked, I knew what I enjoyed, but I never written down my purpose or defined it in one sentence. And Nomos really made me think about this. Like, okay, if somebody asks me what is my purpose, how can I answer this question in one word? And that's when I kind of kept iterating over my purpose. There was a long purpose with a long sentence, then joined together by ands, and then it came down to one sentence, and now to a couple of words that says get creative with code. Yeah, I mean, when I was introduced to coding in my 11th grade, and since then I was very clear as to what I want to achieve, where do I want to go with where do I want to take this domain or the IT, and how do I want to add it, how do I want to make it a part of my life, was something which I was very clear back then. And eventually when I started getting more involved in IT, when I gained a bit of work experience in India, um, my goals started getting even more clear. And ever since then, I've tried my best to get creative, to deliver value with the code that I write. And when I say creative, not just like in the visual aspect of code, like how should it look in the UI, but also the back end stuff of it. So the optimization, the efficiency, how clean the code is something that I really focus a lot more than the visual aspect of code. So that is, yeah, that's sort of my professional purpose. I have a very distinct personal purpose as well, which is a very short purpose, one word: travel. I just enjoy traveling. I think that was my purpose to travel has made me come to Australia. So yeah, I just enjoy looking, listening, look again, finding different perspectives of people, places, enjoying the newness is something that always kind of keeps me alive. And I get that through travel.
Thank you so much, Sana. Holly, does the culture you grew up in have different expectations for boys and girls?
Heck yeah, it does. Though I will say with the caveat that I am considered to be a foreigner, I think. So as a Chinese person, at least, and I would say like probably like Hong Kong Chinese, because there's a lot of different like I think subcultures within Chinese culture, but I'm not the best, I guess. Maybe like my familiarity with Chinese culture is not like the strongest because, you know, I've been away for so many decades, I guess, at this point. But yeah, absolutely. The expectations are very different. But I know that the traditional expectations are like it's pretty big, right? Like the male is always the head of the household. The firstborn is always the head of the household. Like you're kind of ranked within a family by how old you are and also by what gender you are. Like at my grandfather's funeral, like it was a Taoist ceremony, but you had to walk around the casket in order of like family importance. So like all the guys went first and they were ranked by age, and then all the girls went second and they were ranked by age. And I was just like, wow, this is like super traditional. Usually my family is not super like that. Like as the years have gone on, a lot of my family have converted to Christianity, which is interesting in itself. But yeah, definitely the expectations, like if I was a guy, it would be a lot different. I will say that my parents are not super traditional either. But it does, I do kind of have a peek into the very traditional expectations of gender roles. But I'm also not that familiar with it because I'm very Australian, I guess.
Yeah, so when you grew up, Holly, did you experience there were any different expectations in your childhood? Or yeah, now
Yeah.
or in society or anything?
Like as a Chinese person or just generally?
Just
Generally.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah. I didn't grow up feeling super discriminated against for my gender. At least in high school. I did notice, anyway, this is maybe a bit of a silly example, but when I got my first job at Macca's, there's kind of like a front and a back, and the front was like the people who would serve customers. And I noticed that all the girls were at the front and all the guys were at the back. Like experience be damned. Just all the females were at the front. I was like, I don't know why. Like do you just not expect us to be good at making burgers? And I remembered that I made friends with the people at the back, and I was like, this is really fun making burgers. Like it's like a game. And when we were quiet, I would go and make burgers, and then my manager would yell at me to go back to the front. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's fine. Yeah. Again, that's kind of all I remember, but I feel like I've been pretty lucky. I haven't felt too discriminated against as a girl.
The culture that I grew up, yes, there's definitely a lot of expectations. There's a lot of differences in expectations when it comes to men and women. Normally, a woman in India, like personally, I have not really experienced that difference, but in India, it does exist. A woman, if there's a if a family has, is an example, not every family does is I'm not talking on behalf of every family, but there are some families in remote India where if there's a girl child and a boy in the family, they educate the boy over the girl because the girl is going to get married and she's going to move to her husband's place, and so the effort in educating a girl child is wasted. So there's that difference. So there's the boy is always educated before a girl child in India. There's also, you know, the idea of, okay, the girl, once she hits puberty, they're pulled out of school because she's now considered ready for marriage. So there's expectation that a girl is going to be looking after the family while the man is the sole owner of the family. He's the bread owner. The woman looks after the children. The household work is again the woman's part. So there's definitely also decisions. When it comes to decision, a woman's decision is less heard. Sometimes it's barely heard. She does not even get a chance to speak. So there's a lot of differences. Also, when it comes to expectation, the parents expect the son to look after them after they get old, whereas when it comes, which is why they always want a son in the family, because when they get old, there's somebody who's going to look after them, because a girl is eventually going to get married and move to another family. So there's that again, like there are a lot of places in India where a girl child is not cherished, and really rips my heart.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sana. Holly, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Dye your hair pink the instant you leave school. It's fun. I think I would, I don't know, like I've thought about this a lot, and I think for me, at least, it was kind of the people that I was being surrounded with. Like I was quite a shy child, like very insecure, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think maybe the most important thing to do is, what I wish I'd known was like it's okay to fail. It's okay to try things and then not commit to them, if that makes sense. Like you can do a degree for a year, and then if you don't like it, then change it. Like it doesn't matter. Like if you change your mind, everything you choose is not like a preset thing you can get out of it. And I think that's really important, to have that freedom of choice. I would also probably say travel. You're not going to be able to travel for a while for a really not very happy reason. But yeah, I think that's the main message. Don't be afraid to fail, because if you don't try it, you never know what will happen. And yeah, it's not as scary as it sounds.
I would tell my younger self to never stop believing in yourself. Just continue believing in yourself, because the moment you lose that faith in yourself, it's going to be very hard for the opposite person to believe in you. So and I say this because there are a lot of people around you who are like ready to pull you down. They always have something to say. Whatever good you do, there's always something negative associated with it, because of this is just life. This is how this is. Yeah, you cannot stop people from talking. But the thing that you can control is just believing in yourself. And I feel that if I would have done that better when I was a child, I think I would have a lot more confidence. I'd be more bold, because it took me a while to get so bold in life. Yeah, I was very timid when I was back in India. So I feel that for me, that's a very important lesson that I've learned.
Holly, do you have any stories about life in the workplace or outside of work where you would judge or treat it in a negative way because of your gender?
I think yes, but it was more the nature of the workplace. So I worked once at a publishing company, and this publishing company, just to, I guess, give you guys a bit of background and context, one of the websites that they published was a sports site, and the owner, I don't know how much I should say, how much like
We can always cut things out if you
yeah,
love us, but share as much as you want, Holly. You don't have to answer the question either. Completely up to you.
yeah.
You can always get back to it as well.
Basically my boss was the son of a rugby player, like quite a famous and successful rugby player, and he started the company with his brother. And I think he kind of hired a lot of people who were like him, like very, very masculine kind of environment. I'd say probably like out of 24 people, 3 of us were girls. And I didn't really fit in, mostly because everyone was like super sporty and into rugby. But I experienced a lot of things that I didn't understand. And one day I was asked by my boss, and he was like, "Hey, I've heard of this thing called Sketch, which is a design program." He's like, "It sounds really cool. Can you put together a presentation, just to show like the company what it does and what's good about it?" And I was like, "Great, this is my wheelhouse. Like, this is what I love doing." So took a few hours. I prepared a really nice presentation. I was like, "Hey, it might be fun if we could work through a problem rather than me like sharing a few slides. Like, let's do something." And on the day of the presentation, I get up, I tell everyone to bring their laptops, and I'm like pretty nervous because the whole company is there, and I start my presentation. And about 4 minutes into the presentation, my boss tells me to stop, and he's like, "Okay, great, thanks, but tell me like what this product actually does and can we use it?" And I was just like, "Oh God, did I like fail so badly?" Um, I was like, "Yeah, this product does X and X. This could help the team in this doing this thing, you know, that's it." And the boss was like, "Great, thanks." And then he left. And so like he kind of cut across my presentation that I had worked really hard for. And I was like, "Okay, well that's pretty shit." Like that's pretty awful. And then yeah, so I kind of felt like trash. And when I got to my desk, we had used like Yammer, which is kind of like Slack, I guess. And for some reason, I think one of the guys must have been thinking about me. But he messaged me as if like he had intended to message my boss, and he's like, "Oh well, that was a waste of time." And I was like, Jesus, like number one, how dumb are you to message me that rather than my boss? And then number two, I'm just like, wait, like would they have done this to me if like I wasn't a guy? I don't know. But I was pretty upset. But luckily I had some like really good friends in that company. And then he took me out for a coffee, and he said, "I'm sorry you had to experience that. Like I've noticed that this company is very masculine. Like they deal with problems in a not very empathetic way." And he was like, like try not to let it get to you personally, even though I know it sucks. Like I have sisters, and they tell me about things that happen to them in the workplace that is similar to what has happened to you. And he's like, it's okay. I'm here for you. Just and he gave me some advice, and I thought that was really nice of him. But yeah, not long after that, I left the company because I didn't really want to work in that environment anymore. So yeah, I don't know if it was kind of like because of my gender, but I think it was definitely easier for him to kind of cut across me. And I don't know, it was just not a very nice place to work, and everyone kind of communicated in I would say a less empathetic way of communicating. That's probably the worst thing that's happened to me at work that I can think of. Maybe there are more things, but yeah.
I'm sorry you had to experience that, Holly. Sana, same question to you. Remember, you don't have to answer it.
Honestly, I do not have a negative experience. Maybe because I'm kind of very fresh in the corporate world. I haven't really experienced any of that. Like I have been always supported with a lot of, like my family has always supported me. In fact, like they've given my younger brothers, like my cousins, an example of my achievements, which is kind of it's really nice. So it's nice to see that they're not looking at me as a girl who's achieved so much, but more like she's an individual, a human being who has achieved so much, and they're asking my younger kids, younger brothers to, go just maybe not totally replicate what I have done, but just somewhere look up to me. So that feels really nice. So yeah, I'm kind of grateful that I haven't experienced anything as yet. But not to say that it does not exist. There's definitely gender inequality that exists around it. And I'm so sorry, Holly, you had to deal with that.
A recent McKinsey report highlighted the importance of allyship in supporting women in the modern workplace, especially women of color. What are your thoughts on how men can ally with women to create a better world?
I think a very important factor or a contribution that a man can give to a woman is lending their ear. Listen and listen effectively, actively to what a woman has to say. There are a lot of, like, we normally are, the way we think is a woman has to speak up. Like always we want the woman, encourage the woman to go speak up, go on stage, go use the platform. But I think somewhere there has to be a shared responsibility from a man as well. Like the privileged men who are already in that position can offer their voice to the voiceless. And I feel if they are ready to listen to what a woman has to say and seek value in what she says, I feel we can have a very nice relationship together. So yeah, I mean, that's something that we could, a man can think of. Like it's yeah, I can't think of anything else. Like I just feel that this is a very important thing that a man has to do, because it's going to be like, you're sitting, you tell a woman to go speak up, and if somebody in the opposite end is not ready to listen to you, kind of feel demotivated. Like for example, you're in a Zoom meeting or you're in Teams and somebody's on this keyboard, somebody's on their phone, and you've prepared like for days for this presentation, and somebody's not listening to you. It just feels, it demotivates you, discourages you, and I wouldn't want to go speak up again in front of that people, in front of that group of people. So again, it's pretty much the same. Like we tell the woman to go out and speak, but how many of us are ready to actually listen to the woman? So yeah, I feel that the best way we can build this relationship is by listening to what the woman has to say.
Thank you so much, Sana. And I'll ask one more question for you, Sana. Yes, what are some of the cultural gendering norms that surprise you in your life? This could, for example, be around housework or the way in which women are supposed to behave.
Okay. Yeah, there's always this thing, when a woman, the way a woman has to behave, the way we present ourselves in front of the world has always been something that I've been taught from when I was very young. I remember the thing that my mom used to teach me, because I was very carefree as a kid. I never thought of, how I'm presenting myself in front of people. So I literally just sit anyhow, anywhere. But it's pretty much wrong on my end. But my mom always made me aware, like, you're a girl, you got to have a proper posture when you sit. You got to be more graceful. So I remember that's like something that directly just struck me, was how you present yourself. And I also come from a Islamic background where, you cover, a woman normally covers themselves with a burqa. But I'm not so much into, my family is does not believe, or I wouldn't say believe, they just don't follow that culture. But there's definitely that wherein, if you're a woman, you got to cover yourself.
San, I have one more question for you, and then Holly, I have one for you as well. As an immigrant to Australia, has anything surprised you about gender differences here compared to your home country?
Oh, okay, that's an interesting question. Uh, there's yes, like I have seen and also experienced a lot. I've kind of tried to minimize that gap of differences that I've experienced in Australia. It was very easy for me. I had this part-time job at Skechers in India, in Australia. I started off as a sales rep. I was working there for like almost a year and a half, and I was promoted to the role of an assistant manager, and it was very quick. I mean, I was not at all expecting this, but they did not. It didn't matter whether I was a woman, I was a man or girl, boy, whatever. It was just it's solely my potential, my performance at work which mattered, and that felt great. It's like, okay, this is amazing. Like, I really put my heart and blood in selling shoes. And I mean, the reward was it was beautiful. I don't know if this would be, because I have not really lived it, I cannot really comment, but I don't know if that would be the case in India as well. Normally, when it comes to sales reps, they're mostly men. Very few women. They're mostly on the counter or behind the cash counter and stuff. So there's I don't know if this would be so easily possible. Definitely, it's achievable in India as well. There are great leaders. But the time it took me to jump from a sales rep to was just incredible. To a manager was incredible within like almost a year. Also the opportunity and the platform that I receive here at, because Nomas is the only corporate job that I've actually worked in Australia. So I'm giving an example of Nomas. Like the platform that they have offered me to speak up, voice my opinion, give feedback is something that I did not get in India. Not because I was a woman, it was just differences in the superiority level, where we were not so much engaged in it. But it's very different when I see, people in women, people in women at Nomos really out there and speaking up for themselves, being a part of the decision making process. So yeah, there's definitely a lot. There's much more, but I can't think of it right now. So I'm going to pass this question off.
Thank you so much, Sana. Holly, what kind of world do you wish for the next generation of women?
I think my answer might actually tie a little bit back into one of the previous questions. But I think for me, it'd be really nice if men were more educated on what is scary for women. I think one of my biggest, and maybe one of the, one of my biggest, I guess, things I have about being a woman is that, your personal safety is much more at risk than a guy's. And I think a lot of guys instinctively don't understand that. And I think that's fine, but it's my example is that I had an ex and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna catch this bus at 2 a.m. and walk home. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I'm glad that you have an easy plan B. But like, if I did that, like, there is a huge chance I'll be kidnapped or killed or whatever. And I think the same, just in just normal public things. Like sometimes, like I find myself walking home and I'm just like, I did not think this through. This is really dark. There are no cars. Like, you never know. So I'd like kind of those burdens I think, of being a woman to be lessened. I'd also like, because when this kind of inevitably comes into the news, it's always kind of like, why is a woman, walking home by themselves late at night? Like, they should know better. It's like, no, you need to make it a place that people can do that. And it's not acceptable for a guy to do bad things. That's what I want for the next generation.
Wow. I want a world where women clothing is always on 50% discount or something. That would be like a dream. Dream of every woman. Uh, yeah, but on a serious note, I feel like when education is considered as a basic human right and not associated to, okay, a woman education, or a woman should get educated, or a man should get educated, it has to be more, it is a basic human right. It is actually it is a basic human right. And when people look at it in that way, it would be, I just feel it would be a very different world. Because if a woman is educated, it's not just she who's doing better in her life, it's the people around her. There's a family who's going to do better. Her siblings, her future generation is going to do better. So I mean, it's just going to be like, it's she you educate a woman, she's going to educate the people around her. So that, for me, that is very important. And I mean, what else? I think that's like one of my prime focus that I would like to see. The other thing that Holly really mentioned and I liked was walking on the streets without the worry of your safety. That is a very crucial point, and very uh, it scares me. No, I'm not saying it's not in Australia. Like, I don't think that there is that little bit of fear, but there's this fear even more when I walk on the streets of India. Like, if you see, there are a lot of cases with women. There are acid attacks, there are rape cases for women walking on the streets alone by their during the night. So I feel that if a woman can walk the streets at night without the fear of being attacked, or just without any fear in her head that she's going to reach home safely, I feel that is a world that I would like to live in. So yeah, for me, education and women's safety is something that I can think of right now.
Thank you so much, Sana. And thank you both for agreeing to being interviewed today.